You can see what needs to be done. You know it is right. But you also know what it might cost you, and that knowledge has kept you standing still. If you have ever been caught between what is right and what is safe, Esther is about to show you what it looks like to choose anyway. I am Adeline St. Clair. Welcome to Sacred Stories Everyday Lives. When Esther's servants told her that Mordecai was in sackcloth at the gate, she sent clothing for him. He would not take it. She sent one of her attendants to find out what was happening. Mordecai gave the attendant a copy of the decree and asked him to urge Esther to go to the king and beg for mercy for her people. Esther's response was not a refusal. It was a statement of the precise nature of the risk. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. This is not cowardice. This is a woman naming the actual terms of the situation with complete clarity. The law of the inner court was not ceremonial. It was literal. To approach the king unsummoned was punishable by death, with one exception. If the king chose to extend the gold scepter, the person's life was spared. If he did not extend it, the person died. And Esther had not been summoned in 30 days, which meant she had no reason to believe she was currently in favor. Mordecai replied, "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Mordecai does not tell Esther that everything will be fine. He does not tell her that she will certainly survive if she acts. He tells her the truth. If she remains silent, her people will find deliverance, but from another source, and she and her family will not escape. The second is the suggestion that her position may not be accidental. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? This is the closest the Book of Esther comes to speaking of God. Not the name, not a direct statement, a question. An invitation to consider whether her whole life up to this point, the orphan, the exile, the queen, might have been moving toward this very moment. The third is what Mordecai does not say. He does not tell her what to do. He presents the situation and the question, and he waits. The decision belongs entirely to her. And Esther made it. Her reply to Mordecai is one of the great moments of personal transformation in Scripture. "Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. If I perish, I perish." She is not certain she will survive what she is about to do. She is not operating on a guarantee. She is operating on the recognition that the alternative, silence, safety, the preservation of her position at the cost of her people, is something she cannot live with or choose. And having arrived at that recognition, she acted. The fasting she requested was communal. She asked every Jewish person in Susa to fast with her and her attendants for 3 days. In the absence of explicit prayer in the text, the fasting itself functions as prayer, an acknowledgement that what was needed could not be produced by human cleverness or courage alone. Fasting is the deliberate removal of everything that ordinarily sustains and distracts, so that what remains is only the thing at hand and the God who may or may not be present in it. It is the practice of making yourself as dependent as possible before you do the thing that requires the most from you. Esther fasted for 3 days, and then she put on her royal robes. The detail of the royal robes is not about vanity. It is about identity. She had spent years learning to conceal who she was. She was about to do the opposite. She was about to walk into the most powerful room in the empire and stand before the most powerful man in the world and eventually tell him the truth she had been keeping from everyone who mattered. I am Jewish. Your decree will kill me. I am asking you to change it. She put on her royal robes, walked into the inner court, and stood where she could be seen. And the king extended the gold scepter. She does not tell the king immediately. She has survived the approach. The scepter has been extended. The king has asked what she wants and promised to give it to her, up to half the kingdom. This is the moment. This is what she risked her life to reach. If it pleases the king, replied Esther, let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him. She asks for a banquet, not a decree, not an immediate reversal of Haman's decree, a dinner. The king agrees. He and Haman come. At the banquet, the king again asks Esther what she wants. And Esther, having been given the opportunity a second time, invites them to another banquet the following day. 2 dinners before the request. 2 opportunities deliberately deferred. The interpretation of this delay has occupied commentators for centuries. Some read it as nerves. Esther arrived at the moment and found she could not yet speak. Some read it as wisdom. She was watching the king's mood, reading the room, waiting for the precise moment when her request would land most favorably. Some read it as providence, because in the night between the 2 banquets, the king could not sleep and had his chronicles read to him and learned for the first time that Mordecai had once uncovered an assassination plot against him and had never been rewarded for it. Then the king's attention turned to Mordecai just before Haman arrived to ask permission to have him hanged. This delay mattered greatly. The specific timing of the second banquet was not incidental. By the time Esther made her request, the ground had already shifted in ways she could not have arranged. This is the Book of Esther's signature move. What appears to be coincidence accumulates, and the accumulation becomes unmistakable. The king's insomnia, the particular passage read to him, the timing of Haman's arrival, the conversation that followed. None of it is miraculous in the narrow sense. All of it is, in retrospect, the shape of something that was being arranged. At the second banquet, Esther spoke. If I have found favor with you, Your Majesty, And if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. Grant me my life? The petition is personal before it is political. She begins with herself. She is one of the condemned. The decree that Haman obtained will kill her, the queen, as surely as it will kill any Jewish person in the provinces. And then, spare my people. The king asked who had done this, and Esther replied, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. What followed was swift. Haman was condemned and hanged on the very gallows he had constructed for Mordecai. The property of Haman was given to Esther. Mordecai was given Haman's position. And Esther, who had not yet finished, went to the king a second time. Coming up, next time on Sacred Stories, Everyday Lives. Haman had fallen, but the decree remained. And in the Persian world, a decree sealed with the king's ring does not simply disappear because the man who wrote it is gone. There was still a decree circulating through 127 provinces, still being read aloud in town squares from India to Ethiopia, still naming a day, a specific, approaching day, when every Jewish person in the empire was to be destroyed. Esther was not finished. In our final part, we see what she did next, and we ask the larger question this whole story has been building toward. What does it mean that God works this way? Through a hidden identity, through a sleepless king, through the accumulated weight of an ordinary life that turns out not to have been ordinary at all. If today's episode has resonated with you, type, "If I perish, I perish," in the comments. A reminder that courage is not the absence of cost. Or share one step you have been afraid to take. We would love to hear from you. And join us for the conclusion of For Such a Time as This.